All right. Hi, everybody. Katharine and Dave here for the Fantasy Fitnessing podcast for kind of rogue invitational salary cap kickoff week. So this podcast, we're just going to run through the game, how it works, a few sort of demo team lineups, and kind of who we picked, which is always subject to change. So do you want to explain the salary cap game?
Yeah, so the salary cap game, it is 100% free to play on fantasyfitnessing.com. Just create your account and you'll be prompted to set a team. So you get a completely fictional $250 budget to pick a team of 3 men and 3 female athletes that will be competing at Rogue. So we've put prices associated to them based off of their past performance and kind of our expectations of where they'll finish off on the weekend if everything were to go perfectly. But so you go through, pick a team, you can stack it with a bunch of top dollar athletes. I think our highest priced athletes at this point are $60, and then kind of fill up the rest of the remainder with some of the qualifying positions, or you can kind of go middle of the road with a bunch of $40 athletes and pick your team from there. So this one was pretty fun, just because everybody's really good. So you should know everybody.
Yeah, it's a pretty small field, which kind of makes it fun because you don't often have some of those athletes that you get for $20.
Yes.
In our other games, especially like during semifinals, you have to go a lot deeper. So one thing of note is Tia is so far not confirmed, nowhere on the Rogue Invitational site, but I think she has said like the invite is always there. She hasn't necessarily said no. So at this moment, Tia is not in the game. But if that changes, we will add her. So make sure you kind of keep up with what's happening on that status. And would we add her for about $60, Dave?
Yeah, I think that'd probably be the right range based off of how the game's finished up, or the CrossFit games, that is.
Yeah. So that's the update on Tia. So $250, fictional team. You go in, it's all drop downs. It says their prices. So I just made like a few sort of fun ones to explain like who you could have. So you could have Ricky Garrard, Justin Medeiros, and Jason Hopper as your men. That is super heavy cost-wise on the men's side. But then you could have people like Kara Saunders, Annika Greer, and Manon Agonies as your women, which, like we said earlier, is actually kind of fun because like you can pick all of those are sort of big names. A couple of them haven't been to the games, but they're definitely on the cusp and know that they can perform. So another sort of approach that you could do is like Justin Medeiros, Patrick Vellner, and then Jorge Fernandez, and then like Laura Horvath, Daniel Brandon, and Emma McQuaid. So those are 2 different teams that you could pick to cheer for during Rogue. All the points that they get, the points that you get. And that's how sort of we run the leaderboard, is the total number of points that your athletes that you pick. So then you got to cheer for them. So, and then there is a tie break. How does the tie break work?
Yeah, so the tie break, you also, I guess, in addition to picking your athletes, need to choose or basically enter the number or the difference of points between the first and second place athletes on both the men's and the women's side. And then the closest combined, tiebreak score, but closest combined difference would, determine the tiebreak in case the athletes got the same number of points. So if Katharine and my team both ended up with, let's call it 2,400 points, and our difference was 50 points and Katharine's was 40, and it ended up being 38 points, Katharine would be ahead of me in the standings. So fortunately, we've only need to use the tie break once for our podium finishers in the fantasy game, but it is there and it does matter. So
yeah, we have used it. Yeah. So think about it. Think about that point spread between first and second on both sides. All right. Anything else about the game, or should we just run through our subject to change picks that we have right now?
Yeah, I guess, in terms of Rogue itself, just looking forward to seeing the field compete, without Tia and Mal O'Brien competing or competing at this point. I think the women's field's pretty wide open, so it should be exciting to watch. There could be, some surprise performances there to finish top of the podium, and then just after the games, excited to see that top group of men all compete against each other, since I think whatever it is, the top 15 from the games all accepted their invites to Rogue. So it should be exciting to see them all throw down in a different environment.
Yeah, it's like a games redo on the men's side, and then the women's side kind of opens up the top, but then also has like some storylines with Annika Greer and Manon Anganese. So, because there's been lots of hype about Annika Greer and stuff, so let's see how she stacks up against some of these people. There are key people gone, but like there's still a lot of really strong women there.
Yeah, she is a big question mark. She won Canwest Games this summer, which had a handful of semifinal athletes. She was, 20, 30 points ahead of Hattie Kano, who was 7th, I think, at Last Chance Qualifier, but then was 9th at Madrid a few weeks ago. So kind of an up and down season, but she was 15th or so in the Open this year. So has that elite potential. We'll see what her first real test at the games level will be this competition.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch how that plays out. All right, so who do you have on the men's side?
Just the men's side?
Sure.
So starting with the men, so I got Justin Medeiros. He won Rogue last year, 2-time fittest man on earth. So kind of have him as my anchor. I got Patrick Vellner. I think this is the first time we haven't priced them in the top price tier for the men since we've been running fantasy fitnessing. So that said, I'm going to pick Vellner until Vellner no longer competes as an individual athlete. And then I got Jack Farlow, who was a qualifier coming into the event. I think he's like 20 years old, but can lift an absolute house. So given that Rogue was a little bit heavier last year, I got him. They scooped him up for $10. If he ends up finishing 15th, I think he's ahead of expectations there. So I'm happy with that choice.
Yeah, so I went with Roman Krenikov, just still leaning into him, first time showing up at these comps. Yeah, I just like Roman, so I picked him. And then Adler, I don't really have a lot of reason. I like Adler. He's strong, and I think he's still got space to improve. I think he can make a bigger mark, especially at something like Rogue. And then Koski for $30, just to round it out. He's a solid athlete. He's gonna get points. So yeah. And this year his performance at the games wasn't really true. He was coming back from injury, so now he's had a few more months. That I think he's a solid pick at $30.
Yeah, I like Adler. I think just he proved himself last year. That he was able to compete in a live competition at Rogue where he finished on the podium. So 5th at the games, I think there's a strong chance for him to finish top 5, not top 3 here. So
yeah, and you took Vellner and Farlow, so I got to get another Canadian in there.
Yes, we'll have them all.
Yes. And then for the women, who do you got?
So I got Laura Horvath. I think she's the favorite here after finishing on the podium at the games last couple of years. Was 3rd last year at Rogue. I got Annie Thorsdottir. I think just super excited to see her back on the individual field. Her head-to-head battle with Tia at Rogue last year was awesome to watch. She was leading going into the final day, which we hadn't seen that for years from Tia for Tia to come back on the last day. And then I got Alexis Raptis again, just kind of hedging on the side of it being a more of a strength-based competition than what the CrossFit Games might be. So I like her to fill up my team there. So
yeah, I went same as you with Annie. Just excited to see her back. She's awesome. I always want to cheer for her, so I'll pick her.
Yeah.
And then I got Gabriella Magala, just a solid. The women's side I felt was just too up in the air to know who's going to get the most points. So I kind of picked all $40 and $30 athletes. So I got Magala, McQuaid, and Thorisdottir are my 3 women.
Right.
that are all have definite upside potential.
Yeah, all three of them really could finish on the podium for sure, but it's unlikely that they'll finish outside of the top 8 or so. That way, at least you can guarantee yourself the points and has a higher floor than some of the other athletes that might be a bit more wild cards.
Yeah, I felt like the men was a bit more divided of like the top few are the top, whereas women is just a lot more unknown. So went a bit more center balance kind of approach on the men's side of things. So those are our teams for now. I generally change my team and do worse than my first picks. So I'm really going to try to not to, unless maybe Tia comes. I think that warrants a lineup change. How about you? Are you probably locked in, or
I probably will adjust. I don't know. I think we should judge our teams as of this point and compare them to the teams that we ultimately set if there are changes. See which ones does better. Trusting your gut from the start, or always keep your first answer on a test. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited to less than 3 weeks to the event. So
yep. Sweet. So that is our Rogue Kickoff episode. Make sure you follow us at Fantasy Fitnessing on Instagram. We post different stats, sort of different ways of grouping the athletes, who's done what, that kind of stuff. So follow us there and set your fantasy lineups at fantasyfitnessing.com. All right. So that's that. And we will see you on the leaderboard.